All right, so now that we've created our login and create account forms, the next question is how do we actually hook these forms up into our app to make the user log in like we want to happen, right? So what we're going to do essentially is create two parent components for each of these. And obviously those are just going to be pages for the time being, but as I've been harping on this whole time, those could turn into modals or pop-ups or whatever. So what we're going to do is we're going to create two more pages in our application. One is going to be the login page.js, and the other is going to be the create account page.js. All right, so for the login page, all we're going to do is import our login form component from its file, so from components/login form. And under that, we're going to say export const login page. And this one isn't going to take any props. All it's going to do is display the login form with that extra, with those extra elements that we talked about, like the heading and the link to the create account page, etc. And yeah, that's all it's going to do basically. So here's what that's going to look like. We're going to start off by just defining the basic JSX for this component. We're going to say h1, and inside here we're going to say login. Under that, we're going to display the login form, okay? And under that, we are going to display a link to our create account page. So let's import the link component up here. I'm going to say import link from React Router DOM. Oops, there we go, React Router DOM. And we'll put it under here and say link to create, /create account. Okay, now we still have yet to actually display these pages on those corresponding routes, but this will anyway set it up for success in the next few minutes. So we're going to say don't have an account yet, create one, and this will be the link that takes them to the create account page. Now we're going to put these elements inside a concrete container with some styling on it because this is a page and we know what we want it to look like, right? So we don't have to worry about the same things as we did when we were creating the login and create account forms, where we needed to leave it kind of open-ended because we didn't know exactly what kind of container we would want to display those things inside of. Here, we don't really have that problem. So this div, I'm just going to give this div a class name according to what it's going to be later on, and that class name is going to be centered container. We'll take care of actually copying and pasting this style from our old code later on. But for now, it's just going to be a centered container, which means that it will display this form in the middle of the page with a constrained width. All right, and that's our login page. So one more thing that we're going to want to do here is define a function inside our login page component that will be called when the login form is actually submitted. So we're just going to call that login. We'll say const login. And notice I'm using the capital I here because this is, logging in the sense of an action. Not that you have to get that technical with it, but whatever. And this function is going to take, if you'll remember, the email of the user and the password of the user, and it will end up performing some logic, whatever logic is necessary for logging the user in, right? So that might be logging the user in with Firebase auth. It might be logging the user in with a JSON web token. Lots of possibilities there. So for now, though, we're just going to display an alert, and we'll come back and actually add Firebase to this project shortly. We're just going to say logging in, ... And then we're probably going to want to redirect the user back to the home page, right? That's, again, where the way that we've set up our login form makes it very useful. We can decide what we want to do after the user is successfully logged in. Okay, so what we're going to do here is basically we're going to need to import the use history hook from React Router DOM as well. So we'll say link and use history. And we're going to use history to navigate the user programmatically. So we'll say const history equals use history. And then after the user's logged in, once we've displayed this alert for now, we're going to say history.push and send them to the home page, or the notes page rather, because that is the home page of our application. Okay, so now we just need to pass this login function to our login form. We're just going to say on submit login, and that should take care of it all for us. So What we're going to do here, we're going to actually create our create account page first so that we can actually test going back and forth between the two. But once we've done that, we're going to add routes for both of these pages so that we can actually see them in action. Okay, so our create account page is going to be eerily similar to our login page, so much so that if we want to, we can just copy and paste a lot of this. Again, the copying and pasting going on here isn't necessarily a bad thing. There may be some way of reducing this code reuse that I'm not thinking of, but if you think of that, feel free to go ahead and use that. All right, so creating an account here is going to be pretty straightforward. Instead of using the login form, we're going to use the create account form. And we're still going to have link and use history from React Router DOM, since we'll be using those in a very similar way. And just kind of going down line by line here, we're going to change this to create account page. That's going to be the name of the component, of course. And then when we say const login, instead of that, we're going to say const create account. And that'll do its thing. It'll say something like creating account. All right, creating account, blah, blah, blah. And it will actually take an extra argument here as well, which will be the confirm password. And then, just like with our login page, for now we're going to send the user directly through to the notes page. Now, just as a side note, and again, this reinforces what we did when we created the login and create account forms, what we're going to want to do eventually is force the user to verify their email address before they're actually able to use the app. So in that case, instead of using history.push notes, we're going to want to do something different and send them to a different page like, please confirm email, something like that. We'll see what that all is going to look like when we get there, but I just want to make you aware that the way we have this component set up right now is going to make that a lot easier to change when we get there. Okay, so for now it's the same, but later on it'll be different. All right, and the centered container, that's going to be the same. The heading here is going to be a little different. We're going to say create account, of course. And instead of the login form, we are, of course, going to be using the create account form. On submit is going to call the create account function instead of the login function. Okay, so create account, which will be called with the appropriate arguments here. And then for the link underneath that, instead of saying create account, don't have an account yet, blah, 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 we're going to say, we're going to send the user to the login page, and we're going to say, already have an account, log in. Okay, so those are our create account page and our login pages. The next thing that we're going to do here is actually set up routes for these things so that they'll be displayed at the right time. So let's open up our routes component where we've displayed all our other pages. And we're going to start off by importing our login and create account pages. So we'll say import create account page from create account page. And login page we'll do right under that just to keep it in fairly alphabetical order. We'll say import login page from login page. All right, and now the routes for these things. I generally like to keep the login page and create account pages together route-wise. We're going to have to put them before the not found page, of course. But, that just kind of helps me to find them when I go into the routes file later on. So what we're going to do, we're going to say route. The path here is going to be /login. And inside that route, we're going to say login page. Okay? And likewise, for our create account page, we're going to say route path equals /create account. And in that case, we're going to say create account page. Oops, there we go. And we got to close that tag. And that should take care of displaying our login and create account pages for us. So let's start up our application by running npm run dev. And that should run our front end and our back end, and we should be able to view this in a browser now. And that opened in a different window for me, so I'm going to drag it over here. Oops, and it looks like we got an error of some kind. So it says create account form is not exported from blah, blah, blah. We just forgot to change the file path here. So let's go back to our create account page. We're going to change login form here to create account form. Perhaps you've even already done that in anticipation of my stupidity. And it looks like we have one more error here. It says on submit login is not defined. Of course it isn't, because we need to actually change the name of that. I'm assuming that's in our login form, and probably because we copied and pasted in our create account form as well. So this is going to be on submit email password, and for our create account form, nope, we already did that one. So good, at least I thought ahead for that. And it looks like we have no more errors happening. So let's go back here now, and we should be able to go now to our login page, which will look like that. Not the best looking thing. We're going to add some styles to it shortly, and we should be able to see our create account page. In fact, we don't even have to type it in. We can just click on it by clicking this link, and that'll take us to create account. Clicking this link will take us to login, and just like that, we can get between our create account and login pages if we need to. Cool, so we've created those pages for our create account form and our login form. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.